You're watching World One live on CNN. I'm Monita Rajpal from CNN London. Now, we will continue to bring you up to date on the situation off the Indian Ocean and the earthquake that struck off the Indian Ocean, an 8.7 magnitude earthquake, and that has triggered tsunami warnings across various countries along the Indian Ocean. We'll bring you the very latest as we get it. For now, though, we want to bring you up to date on some of the other stories that we're also keeping our eye on this Wednesday. Activists say more than 100 people were killed in Monday's violence. The same day, the Syrian government said it had begun pulling out some of its forces. CNN senior international correspondent Nick Robertson joins us now here in the studio. It seems as though there are not many options left.
There aren't many options left, and Kofi Annan is saying that his peace plan really is the only way. In fact, he's saying it very bluntly. What other choices do you have if we don't go along with this?
Thank you very much, Nick Robertson. North Korea's neighbors are on edge. Engineers in the north are fueling a long-range rocket that the government says will launch a satellite into orbit any day now. That's forced nearby countries to reroute flights away from the expected path of the rocket. South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. suspect the north is actually testing ballistic missile technology. Pyongyang insists the mission is for peaceful scientific exercise. Let's give you an idea what newspapers around the world are saying about this. A headline in the South China Morning Post reads, "Between a rocket and a hard place." The article looks at China's diplomatic role, and it says a source close to China's top leadership and a Western diplomat have both said it has little influence over Pyongyang and is in no position to block the event. The real issue may be China's actual willingness to exercise influence. China sees value in the North Korean regime as a buffer against South Korea-U.S. military alliance. From the Oman Daily Observer, there's this headline that simply reads, "Dark clouds." It's a comment piece that says dark clouds are gathering once more over the Korean peninsula. The planned launch is prompting a fresh showdown between the communist country, now led by Kim Jong-un, and other nations in its neighborhood. And moving down under, the Australian newspaper has this headline, "China's test is to stop North Korea going ballistic." The comment piece says the test simply repeats the pattern of provocation and propaganda that has been the hallmark of North Korea's strategic behavior for the past 20 years. The recent inability of China to force North Korea back to the negotiating table or to extract significant concessions on the missile and nuclear programs suggests that China's influence is limited and waning. More still to come here on World One, including an update on the situation in Indonesia. We'll bring you more on the 8.7 magnitude earthquake that has triggered tsunami warnings across the Indian Ocean. We'll be right back with that. Recorded off the coast of Sumatra in Indonesia, the U.S. Geological Survey says an 8.6 magnitude quake occurred about 500 kilometers southwest of Banda Aceh at a depth of 33 kilometers. A tsunami watch is in force throughout the entire Indian Ocean basin. We are getting some reports. Reuters is now reporting that the international airport in Phuket has been closed after the tsunami warning, and they've temporarily closed it. Other countries such as Indonesia, Sri Lanka have also issued tsunami warnings, especially along the coastal regions, specifically the Andaman Islands. To a seismologist, Gary Gibbon, who's on the phone with us to talk a little bit more about the situation. Gary, if you can hear me. Oh, sorry, ITN's Gary Gibbon in Jakarta. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing where you are?
Well, I'm in the President's Palace in Jakarta, in the capital of Indonesia. I just had a joint press conference with the British Prime Minister David Cameron.
Gary, we thank you very much for the ITN's Gary Gibbon, who has been following David Cameron, who is now also in Jakarta and had just reported on the President's news conference on the situation there in the country. Again, an 8.7. Some reports are indicating a potential 8.5 earthquake had struck earlier this day on Wednesday, but the concern now is the tsunami warnings and the potential of the tsunamis that will strike the various countries, various cities along the Indian Ocean. We haven't heard of any reports of any tsunamis at this point, but of course we are continuing to bring you up to date on any of the information that we get, and as soon as we get it, you'll get it as well. We're watching it, and we'll bring you more in just a moment. Public transport services have partially resumed in Brussels today after days of being suspended. Transport workers stopped work 4 days ago when a bus inspector was punched in the face and we want to bring you up to date now on the tsunami warnings that have been initiated and instituted in the Indian Ocean. Our meteorologist Mari Ramos is at the International World Weather Center with more details. Mari.
Yeah, Monita, we just got another update from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. They are saying that based on readings, there has been a tsunami that was generated by this 8.6 quake off the coast of Sumatra. However, it does not appear at this time that the tsunami was very large. A couple of things. We're going to go ahead and take some time to explain this. This is the epicenter of the quake. And Ivan, if you're listening to me, go ahead and zoom into these areas right in here. These are the areas where the buoys were actually located. There are two. One of them is in Melabang, Indonesia, and I marked them right over here. One of them is just off the coast of Indonesia right here in the north. And that one had a reading of less than a foot, 0.9 foot. The other one in Sabang is a little farther to the south right over here, and that one had a sea level measure of about a foot. Switch sources over here. The reason, Monita, they're saying that this may not have been as large of a tsunami as other times, even though we have this 8.6 magnitude quake, is because of the type of fault line where this actually occurred. There are different types of fault lines. And when we were talking about the earthquake several years ago that had that terrible Indian Ocean-wide tsunami, that was an area that was a more up and down motion. And in this case, we're looking more side to side motion. So less water, a smaller volume of water, even though it was a large quake, is actually displaced.
All right, Mari, we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Obviously, we're going to be keeping a close eye, at least for the next couple of hours, to see what does develop. In other news, U.S. presidential hopeful Rick Santorum is bowing out of the race for the Republican nomination. For the past few months, the former Pennsylvania senator has been seen as the main conservative alternative to Republican frontrunner Mitt Romney. There has been a massive earthquake off the coast of Sumatra in Indonesia. The U.S. Geological Survey says the quake of the magnitude 8.6 occurred about 500 kilometers southwest of Banda Aceh. We want to get more on this. Let's bring in Dr. Simon Boxall. He's an oceanographer from the National Oceanography Center in Southampton here in England. He joins us now via Skype. Sir, thank you very much for being with us. Based on the information that you know and the statistics that you have right now, how much of an impact could this tsunami have?
If the tsunami was generated from this earthquake, then it would have a substantial impact. Bear in mind at 8.6, 8.7, this is about half the power of the tsunami we saw in 2004.
All right, so we really appreciate your time there, Mr. Boxall. This is Simon Boxall, oceanographer from the National Oceanography Center in Southampton here in England. We appreciate your time. We want to get more now on the emergency efforts that are taking place. Philip Charlesworth is the head of the delegation for Indonesia at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He joins us now on the phone. Philip, what are you doing in terms of potential impact that this may have? We understand now from the oceanographer that we just saw, we may very well be out of the woods, but there could still be some emergency needs that need to be addressed.
Exactly. The Indonesian Red Cross, in conjunction with 3 local authorities, are undertaking their initial assessments of
World One. There are some developments in the earthquake that struck off the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Sumatra, I should say. It was an 8.6 magnitude earthquake, which triggered tsunami warnings across the countries along the Indian Ocean. However, from what we understand, according to experts, that we would have known by now if it would have had a devastating impact. But of course, everyone is still alert, and emergency crews are on standby to be dispatched to various countries. Countries such as India, Sri Lanka, Thailand have all issued tsunami warnings, but as of yet, there has been no reports of any major damage or casualties right now. But we want to put it all in perspective for you. CNN's senior international correspondent Dan Rivers reported on the 2004 tsunami in Indonesia. He joins us now to give us some background. So there is some good news for today. Again, we're still on alert, watching for any developments, but take us back to what you saw when you went there in 2004.
Well, I got there the day after the tsunami hit, which, as your previous guest said, was twice as strong as this one.
And entire communities, entire families were wiped out. in 2004. You're seeing that rebuilding now. But this is an area that is known to have earthquakes. It is known to trigger tsunamis. It would beg the question why people would want to rebuild there anyway.
Right. I mean, it's kind of known as the Ring of Fire because there's so much seismic activity and volcanoes and so on. It is actually quite densely populated, Sumatra and Java.
Hopefully we are out of the woods, of course, within the next half hour or so. We should know more. But as you were saying, that if we would have known by now if there was some sort of devastating impact in the last couple of hours. But again, we are not going to leave this story just yet. Dan, thank you very much for that. We're not going to leave it just yet, of course, until we get some assurances, more assurances that the tsunami warnings have been effective and that there has been no mass devastation. We'll continue to bring you more as we get it. For now, you're watching CNN. I'm Monita Rajpal. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.